Coming up, happy birthday, Microsoft.
You're listening to Double Tap, your daily accessible technology show. Now, here's your hosts, Stephen Scott and Shaun Priest.
Hey, Shaun Priest, happy new week.
Happy birthday, Microsoft, and happy new week to you and our double tappers, by the way.
Yeah.
Did you get Microsoft a lovely present for their birthday?
Do you know, I always mean to get a card for these things. I always forget every single time.
I see.
Listen, if I don't buy my wife a Valentine's Day card, I don't think Microsoft are getting anything out of me. Do you do Valentine's Day? Do you do all those kind of things? Birthday cards?
Yeah, of course I do.
No, you don't.
I am a incurable romantic, Stephen Scott.
Insufferable romantic.
No, I don't do birthday cards. I don't do Christmas cards. I will say that.
Is that a blind protest thing? Do you not want to?
Well, yes, but it just happens to coincide with me being incredibly lazy. So
it works out well, doesn't it?
It does. But I do Valentine's presents and birthday presents and Christmas presents.
Should I ask?
Cards. No, you definitely should not ask.
I want to know now. Everyone wants to know. What do you get?
Sorry, are we on air? Well,
yes.
No, shut up.
Why are we not on air, Shaun, please? Listen, 50 years of Microsoft. It's weird, right? Because you say 50 years and you think, wow, that's old, right? And then you go, well, they were founded in 1975. And you think, hang on, that doesn't feel old to me. I mean, I was born in 81, right? So, yeah, okay, I wasn't born when it started. But...
Yes.
1975 does not feel like a long time ago to me. Certainly doesn't feel like 50 years.
Not for me. I think I was 1975.
So it's a bouncing baby.
Microsoft have always been there, right? It's one of those you've grown up with. And I remember DOS. I remember a time before Windows 3.1. And then, of course, we went all the way up. XP, 95s, 98, second edition, server. Man, they were all beautiful. But, I mean, there's no denying it. Love them or hate them, Microsoft have made a huge impact, right?
I think
Windows is massive.
I think we've all loved and hated it at some point. You know, and I think every single person, probably even Bill Gates himself would agree with that. I think every single person at some point has had a moment where, I mean, remember the old joke, you know, why do they call it Windows? Because every so often you want to throw a computer through one.
Yes, exactly.
Because, you know, they would just infuriate you. And of course, we all remember the classic stories of, especially more recently with Windows 10, the debacle of Windows 10. Remember Jaws wouldn't work for a long time. There was a big issue, there was challenges, and then that all had to be fixed and sorted. It was a mess for a while.
I think... Actually, Windows 8 was the big shift where they got rid of the start menu.
Yeah,
you
that's
had the
right.
Start screen. And yeah, there was a lot of accessibility issues. There was
Windows 8 was terrible. Windows 8 was like Windows Vista. Remember Windows Vista? No one wants to remember Windows Vista, but that was a terrible experience. And those were the days you'd buy it in a box.
Yes,
and to be perfectly honest, as far as I'm concerned, that's exactly what should have happened to Windows Vista. Be put in a box and buried and forgotten about.
To be fair, they've all gone through those ups and downs. Every tech company has, right? And I've got to say, I think Windows 11 is good. I don't have an issue with it. Still got a slight problem with the settings and the control panel, and it's all a little bit just merge it all together. Why is that taking so long? But it's a lot more stable than it was, and it works fine.
Well, they've been holding various events. On Friday, they held a number of events, and they had Steve Ballmer, they had Bill Gates, and of course Satya Nadella on stage talking. They also were showing off lots of cool features and kind of looking ahead, right? They were looking ahead to what's coming with Copilot, because really Copilot is their big focus at the moment, their move on AI, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But of course, we cannot avoid the fact that there was not one, but two protests at the event by Microsoft employees. Now, I'm not sure if they were employees or ex-employees or soon-to-be ex-employees. I'm not quite sure. Yes. But let's listen to some of the protests that were going on during their event, which was showcasing Copilot and also an on-stage roundtable between Steve Ballmer, Satya Nadella, and Bill Gates.
The question I wanted to address today is really simple. What does all this mean?
Well, stop my shame on you. You say you claim that you care about using AI for good, but Microsoft sells AI weapons to the Israeli military. 15,000 people have died, and Microsoft starts this genocide in our region.
Thank you for your protest. I hear you.
Your Syrian family know about this, Mustafa.
I hear your protest. Thank you.
Shame on you. You are a war profiteer.
I hear you. Thank you.
AI for genocide, Mustafa. Stop using AI for genocide in our region. You have blood on your hands. All of Microsoft has blood on its hands.
Thank you. I hear your protest. Thank you. Okay.
Well, I think
You're all hypocrites. I'm a Microsoft worker, and I do not consent to 50,000 Palestinians in Gaza have been murdered with Microsoft technology. How dare you? Shame on all who are celebrating on their blood. Cut ties with Israel. No action for apartheid.
So protesters disrupting the events, two particular moments there. And I have to tell you, Shaun, that is exactly the reason right there that Apple will never hold live events ever again. I'm going to put it out there right now. That is the end of live events for Apple, because they do not want that kind of stuff going on at their events, I imagine.
I watched the Copilot event last night from the Microsoft website, and funnily enough, that wasn't in there. So yes, but it was all over the news the next day. So I've got to say, I find that really interesting, the protests, and maybe I'll explain why.
Well, go for it, because I've got to say, my take on it is, you often feel there's times and places for things, but I also think the world is in such a state at the moment where there's so much converging. You know, there was a time when we kind of felt a little bit zoned off from world events, from things that are happening around the world. And of course, that's getting harder and harder to detangle. It's getting harder to avoid the noise at the door, I feel. And, you know, there's many people have many views on these things, and I'm not certainly going to get into that because, you know, what these people were saying, you know, I'm sure there's a million arguments on one side, a million arguments on the other, and I'm not the person to have that discussion. But you know, is that person right to raise it there? I mean, they say they're Microsoft employees. Was this the right approach?
Well,
I mean, certainly they feel it certainly was the right approach.
It depends. I mean, you can't argue that as a form of protest or highlighting an issue, whether it's valid or not. I mean, it definitely worked, right? It's all over the news.
Yeah, we're talking about it, yeah.
What better way to make a protest? Now, the thing for me is, this is all allegations. I don't know. But what was mentioned there was AI weaponized, right? AI for weapons. Now, if there's any truth to that, again, I do not know. If there's any truth to that, why shouldn't that be brought forward? I didn't think that was allowed. I mean, what is AI weaponry anyway in that context? It could mean absolutely anything.
I mean, come on, we know that. Well, we don't know.
No.
We don't know for certain, but what we do know is that, you know, AI is being used in many different ways, and it would not be unusual for the military, who is usually first with a lot of this kind of technology. I mean, think about satellite navigation. You know, a lot of the satellite navigation we have today is because the military had it first, right? They had this technology first. You could argue the same thing for that, right? I mean, you know, people using that to locate targets and all of that stuff. Well, you could equally have the same protest, I guess. Yes,
look, technology has always been used in warfare, right? Absolutely. And you could argue it's always pushed technology warfare applications. But my point is that AI and weapons, the words are important here. If AI is being used actually to harm someone, making that decision, as far as I know, in most countries around the world, that is absolutely not allowed.
Well, you say harm someone, but I mean, if you put AI inside a gun...
If AI is making the decision whether or not to take action to physically harm someone, you don't get AI-powered drones, right? They're always manned by a human, remote controlled. But you do not get AI that will make a decision, that is a hostile target, let me take action against that. As far as I know, that is not allowed. I don't really know what I'm talking about here, but what I'm saying is...
No, I get where you're coming from. I do get where you're coming from.
If those protests have any validity to them, then I think they're a good thing. Because, look, let's quickly go back to the actual event, right? It was so twee and so nice. They had a dog trainer come on. Yeah, let's talk to some people that use Copilot. And, hey, you know, I painted the door and it was full of bubbles. So I went in and asked Copilot, what went wrong? And it was also nicely, and how Copilot, you know, can greet you with a what's up or a more formal way if you want it that way. It's just so friendly, which is fine. But that was such a juxtaposition to the allegations made by the protest that, hey, did you know that AI, and in this term, Copilot, is being used in weapons. If there's any validity about that, I want to know that myself. So even if it brings a focus on it, I think that's a good thing.
Microsoft have not spoken out about it. They've let it go. And, I assume that individual, it was quite interesting actually, because they were giving mugs away to people who were attending the event. And I think the mug said on it, "Speak your mind." Clearly some people took that quite literally. And look, there's always people who are going to protest these things, and many people are going to have different views, rightly or wrongly.
And they could have been completely wrong as well, that protest. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, if it puts a highlight and people look into it and say, actually, there's no validity to that protest, then fine.
Well, there will be plenty of journalists who will be on the case if that is the case. But no, look, I think if you don't think the AI is being used in weaponry in some way, if you don't think we're moving into an era where we will have robots essentially fighting with each other on the battlefield, then you're kind of missing the point about where we're going here, right? I mean, this is what AI is all about. It's about literally doing the jobs we do, including soldiers. And some argue, well, that's a good thing because then we're not killing each other on the battlefield. I don't really understand the point of the war in that case. If you just have a bunch of robots killing each other and we're all sitting at home saying, "Oh, isn't that nice?" I don't really see the point of that, to be perfectly honest. But
sadly, not how it works, is it?
No, I'm sure it won't. No,
I will say this, though. I think Mustafa, who was on stage in that first clip, he handled it very well.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. That was tough.
I hear what you're saying.
And what can you say? What can you say? You're not going to get into a debate on a stage when you're trying to talk about, the fact that you can turn your AI into Clippy. It's very hard to bring that around.
Such a weird, wasn't it?
It's very hard to bring it round to that,
It was.
But let's talk about the event. So they showed off a number of new Copilot features, and as you say, Mustafa was up on stage. He was showing off some of the Copilot companion features.
What is an AI companion? Where do I begin?
Don't worry, I got you. I'd recommend picking a theme first.
Copilot just cuts right through the chaos and gets to the heart of what you need. It's grounded in web links, so you can always reliably look things up whenever you want. Bang, dinosaurs. Okay, excellent theme. That's a good start. Hey, Copilot, for tomorrow's commute, can you put together a 15-minute podcast with some dinosaur facts that I can remember so I can show up like one of those cool uncles at the birthday party?
You got it, Mustafa. I'll get that ready for you right away.
Nice. Okay, let's have a listen.
Morning. Welcome to your personal podcast about dinosaurs. Here are some cool facts for your nephew's birthday party.
What about the name Velociraptor? It means speedy thief. Kids will love that one.
Oh, nice. What about the dinosaur with the longest name, Micropachycephalosaurus? Might be hard to remember.
The Quetzalcoatlus was the size of a plane. You wouldn't want one of those swooping down for your ice cream.
So
we're out of a job.
Well, are we? Okay, look, this is the interesting thing for me with all of these events. I always feel we see the same thing, right? We always see a generic use case. And look, I know it's very difficult because they're never going to stand up on stage and say, okay, so you do this particular role in life, so therefore this is going to work for you in this way. This is ultimately a little bit of you've got to bring your imagination to the table when it comes to these assistants, right? And you also have to remember, the amount of times I've done it recently where I'll say to someone, I wonder if it can do this. And they always come back to me with the same response, which is, why don't you just ask it? And it's true. You ask the thing. Stop having the conversation in my head and actually have the conversation with the Copilot or the ChatGPT or the Gemini or whatever. But, I think what they're showing there is, and this is, I guess, that particular feature is close to what Google had created with the Notebook LLM feature, which is kind of like taking all your notes and compiling them into something that it could then create a podcast out of. So you have these two, AI hosts who essentially, do a show for you and sort of use
with
all
the
your information
that you want. And you know what? I would use that because the cool thing about this is you can get information from anywhere, right? But it's how it's presented back to you. Yeah. I love talking to ChatGPT and Copilot and Gemini and having that live conversation. And if I don't understand something, I say, sorry, I still don't understand. Can you make it easier and give me an example? And it does it. It is fantastic at that sort of thing. And I would definitely use look, if I could set a daily alarm that will wake up with my own personal podcast with all the latest accessibility news in it, I would use that, definitely. I think that's really cool.
I think that's the imagination thing, right? This is the stuff that I can't really imagine at that moment. I'm like, what would I use this for? But you're right. I mean, there are times you get, I mean, maybe not an instruction manual, but maybe you might have something, a bunch of information, or maybe it's just a story you want to understand more and understand the issues. You know, give it all the sources that you've got. And like you say, just turn that into a podcast. I mean, I think it's an interesting idea. I don't know how popular that would be, but, you know, you seem to like the idea.
Look, I will say all the examples given, and this isn't just exclusive to Microsoft, are just so sort of, really? You know, I was planning a trip, and now I'm going to go to...
Everyone goes to Japan. It's like, who are these people going to Japan all the time?
How many people are planning a trip using Copilot? I'm sorry, that's not everyday use. I tell you what people want to do. Like, you know, every phone call I get off my mum saying, how do I save this Word document again? And where does it go? And where do I find my documents? That's what people want. That's the use case for people.
That's a good example. So they did show off this Copilot Vision, essentially, is a new thing that they've announced, which is kind of like, again, what we've seen before from others, but they're showing you how it would work with Microsoft. And here's an example of how you can do similar to what you're talking about. This girl here is doing an edit to a picture, and she's a bit confused as to what she needs to do to get the picture to look good. So this is the setup for this clip, which kind of explains what she's doing in this video, and she'll talk you through how she uses Copilot to help her.
What's really neat about Copilot Vision on Windows is that Copilot can understand beyond just what I say. With my permission, it can see my screen like a second set of eyes. It's my sounding board, and most importantly, it can respond in the context of what I'm seeing on my screen. Copilot, I need to edit this photo. I want to sell this chair and I need it to look good. How do I change the saturation?
Don't worry, I got you, Dina. Just create a new adjustment layer down here. And you can change the saturation with this slider here.
Thanks, Copilot. That looks really good.
So there is an example of where she's asking, like you were saying, you know, your mum says, how do I save this document? She could just ask the computer and it would show her.
Yes.
And I think that sounds cool. I mean, obviously for us, we're thinking, okay, could it action that? Could it actually do it instead of telling us? Or could it tell us the steps and kind of help us from a screen reader point of view? Again, we need to ask it to find out, right? This must be something that is being built in. I mean, we know the accessibility team are involved heavily in this. So, you know, I'd be intrigued to see. Well, but of course they are. They're across all of this. They have to be.
I was being facetious, but the Copilot app is still... Yeah.
I know.
But you're right, okay? So there was a list of things that are coming to Copilot either by today or over the next few weeks. You're going to see these features in the Copilot app. The thing that they did mention was memory. And Copilot is going to know what your favorite food is and lots of other facts about you. And plus, it's going to give you the ability to tell it what to remember and edit its memory, basically. So if you don't like it knowing something about you, can get rid of it. Cool. I like that a lot. Of course, that's going to make life easier if it knows what your dislikes and likes are.
But it actually goes further than that, doesn't it? Because if you think about the amount of times I've gone in and I've asked it to do something, and I'm essentially asking it to do the same thing every day, the same task.
Yes.
Instead of doing that, just saying, look, can you just do this thing again?
Yeah, exactly.
And it knows.
So that's the important thing. As was shown in that clip there, the vision. So, you know, we've seen this on Gemini. This was the first, I think, to come out with this. Excuse me. The ability to share your screen with your AI. So it can see what you're browsing, can see your screen, and it can give you tips on what to do. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. But the other one, more importantly for me, was the actions.
Yeah.
So it can take action. You can tell it to go off and, you know, buy this thing somewhere, and it will go off and do it. Now, it does have a specific list of shopping services that it supports at the minute. None of them that I've really ever heard of. I think Open Table, it was all to do with that, you know, booking a meal or a taxi or whatever it may be. And hopefully that will grow. But yes, the actions is there or should be coming. I got a feeling that may be US specific at the beginning.
It'll grow. It will grow. And look, I think this is going to be interesting for us. This is where it gets cool. So there was one example, I think, where I don't know if it was a flight they were booking or whatever it was, but it was able to go off and fill in the website, you know, fill out the information as required. I think the problem I have with this at the moment is trust. You were talking earlier about AI and weaponry and all of this, and I think, goodness me, if ChatGPT was in charge of the military, I would be terrified. You just have robots firing off into the sky because my ChatGPT can't barely. I mean, I gave it a website the other day. I've been having issues with the Revo 2 keyboard, just getting used to it. And I'm starting to get my head around it now. It's a little bit more complicated and certainly more involved than I thought it was going to be. And on the website is a manual, but it's not the most clearly written manual. I think it's translated, which is not ideal. Mm-hmm. I think the website is actually translated from Korean, so it's not perfect. It's not that easy to understand for me. And some of the ways things are written, it's like, am I meant to hold this button down and that button at the same time and all that stuff? So anyway, I thought I'll throw it all to ChatGPT. I'll give it the website, I'll give it the address of the manual, and I'll say, look, reference this. And it started, I had a conversation. I was in voice mode and I'm having a conversation, and it's telling me so confidently, if you press this button and you press that button, this will happen. And I pressed it, and of course nothing happened. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then when I finally did get back in the next day to the computer and sat down and looked at the manual properly, the information was entirely wrong. Just made it up. I don't know where it was getting it from. I don't know what it was referencing, but it was just all wrong. And I thought, how? There's a trust element here. So I think if I'm booking a flight, I want to know this thing is booking the right day. It's using the right information, because if you're booking a flight, as we both know, the information has to be right. It has to be, you got to get your name right on there. You got to make sure if you've got a middle name, you add it. Your passport information has to be correct. Those fields have to be filled in properly. So this is where I think Copilot could win the day, is the accuracy aspect. I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying I feel with Microsoft, there's probably more of a push to get that accuracy right. And perhaps through the actions, because of the way it's doing it, and I don't really understand the back end of all this thing. I don't think anybody really does, to be honest. But ultimately, the way these agents work is it's going to be, using the information you give it, and also with that knowledge base of information it has on you, that could be really useful, I think, in actually getting it right.
Well, look, it's all about the ecosystem with all of these, right? I mean, Copilot has access to you, or could have access to your Microsoft ID, your Microsoft account, which could have your address, your payment details, so many details from you, your emails, everything on your computer. So the chances that it's got the correct information, because it's not going off to the internet to find out about you, is quite high. And the same with Gemini on your, on the Android phone or wherever. It's built into that ecosystem and has access to that. So, yeah, I'm quite happy. It sort of links in with the memory aspect and personalization of getting to know who you are. And they made a big deal about Copilot being your own personal assistant, as in specifically created or get grown into, if you like, you. It's going to be something that knows everything about you, which I absolutely love. It may freak other people out.
Do you feel that, because I certainly feel, I feel almost bad for Tim Cook right now, because how far behind is Apple on this? I mean, Apple Intelligence at the moment is writing tools and, a nice noise when you ask for Siri.
Do you know what, though? Look, I agree with you. On the face of it, Apple are just so far behind. But this is the question. What are we using AI for at the moment? Again, I still think we're at the, potentially, ... phase. Because I'm having conversations with Copilot and everything else, and it's great, and it's answering questions, but I could equally do a Google search. I mean, it's going to take me longer. I got to dig through and move around, but, it's not anything that's irreplaceable. I don't think we're there yet. When I can ask ChatGPT to do things for me and it takes actions, fantastic. Hey, click on that buy now or checkout button because it's not accessible, then I am all in. Until we get that in our hands, and hey, maybe it is out there, maybe it's on the high paid level tiers of some of these AI services, but you know what? Until the general public, people like me and us get our hands on it, I'm not convinced still.
Look, I don't disagree with that. What I would say is Apple have got the joy of at the moment of the fact that most people out there are not using this stuff, right? Most people are just not. Most people are still going to Google for searching. They're still using it. You know, they maybe see the pop-up for Copilot, maybe don't really understand what it does. They might have tried summarizing a document, and that's maybe led them into something. They've maybe hit a summarize button, or they've maybe tried the writing tools or something like that, but they've maybe not gone that far. Maybe dabbled with ChatGPT, but that's as far as it's gone. You know, most people are not out there building apps. They're not out there building plugins or, you know, writing code. They're not doing that stuff. So, and I'll be honest, whenever people start talking about those things, I just switch off because I just don't know. It's not my world. I have no interest in that. I'm not going to be a develover. I know, you know, they made a big thing about.
Be now.
I know that's what they said. Like, but you can do everything. And I'm like, I don't want to. I don't want to write apps. I want someone else to do it, and I want to buy them.
Well, AI can write them for you, and you don't have to buy them.
Then I have to come up with the idea, and I can't be bothered.
Okay, fair enough. No,
I just want to use my computer, you know? I just want the basics to work.
AI is very impressive. And look, people are using it, but I don't think the vast majority of people are using it. And if they are, we're using it almost for creative purposes. You know, hey, look.
People might be doing the image playground thing. And yeah, those cool
AI
things.
songs are amazing.
Yes.
And there's some great work. And people love it. I would love to get into that myself. But, you know.
But that's maybe where Apple wins at the minute. Or at least not wins, but it has the benefit of time. You know, people aren't the reason I think Microsoft are doing really well here with this is because what they're coming up with are tangible products people would use. I can see how I would use this stuff. I can see that I would be using this in my everyday. I like the fact that Copilot has memory. I love the vision thing. I want to quickly play this video actually because this shows you it on mobile. Now this kind of gives you a little bit of a sense of what we saw with the OpenAI video, the one actually presented by Be My Eyes way back then. Mike Buckley came on and said he wished he'd never put out there. But you know, this is essentially, and you know, it goes back to, you know, how do you show this thing off? And what they did was they showed off a number of dinosaurs. Again, dinosaurs on this theme. They showed dinosaurs sitting on a table, and they were using a mobile phone. Wasn't sure if it was an Android or an iPhone, but they were using a mobile phone to ask questions based on what the Copilot could see.
Hey, Copilot, could you help me group these by, say, era?
Looks like you're working with some dinosaurs. Most of these are from the Mesozoic era, which is divided into 3 periods: Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous.
Okay, now that all sounds good. Doesn't quite answer his question, mind you. Just told you what they were. But, you know, the point is that he's able to use that and, I guess, query and go further. And if that vision can see, the question comes back, though, every single time. Is that live? As in, can it see it live? Like if those things were moving in front of him? I'm hoping the dinosaurs weren't. But if anything was moving in front of that camera, would it know that?
I think it did get that right, by the way. Those were eras it gave him for those dinosaurs.
No, but he said group them together.
Oh,
I thought it was going to help him to sort of arrange them.
That dinosaur needs to go in that one.
Yeah.
This wasn't an audio described, or at least I didn't find the option for audio description.
Blind people figuring out video. That's what this is about today.
So I actually thought he was on a website and had pictures. So that's very interesting. So that was actually looking through the camera. Yeah, look, we've seen the live video already. Gemini, all the others, they all support this already. So this is very cool.
It's hard to, it's so funny. This stuff is incredible, right? And we're sitting here going, it's all right. I mean, you know.
No, yeah, but you know what the problem is? It's because when you actually come to use it, at first you're blown away. And then once it gets a question wrong and completely wrong, and then gets it continuously wrong, you think, oh, can I really trust this? So again, it's like you said, it's all about the accuracy.
2025 is the year of growing trust in this thing. It really is. And all of them, whichever one it is. I mean, I know Meta have announced one as well, Llama 4, that they've put out there, and it's now available actually on my WhatsApp app for some reason. Don't really know why, but it's in there, and I can chat to Meta AI, but not through the glasses, apparently. That's not a thing. Don't understand what's going on there.
Okay.
Yes. Anyway, let's move on because, look, I think cool stuff going on, right? And no doubt it is very exciting. I think I'd like to just get hands-on with a lot of this stuff. And actually
I am going to be checking for updates in my Copilot app every day. I checked last night to see if there was any of these features in there. Not that I could find. I did listen to the AI interviewed podcast with all the CEOs.
Oh, yeah.
That was okay. So, I look, definitely very excited about this. I'm just yet to be convinced. I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's interesting times. It really is. I want to mention PhoneLink as well. Now, this is a bit of a departure because obviously we've got all this new cool stuff coming. And I will say as well, if you're looking for all of these features, some of them will be under the insider preview modes. So you may have to, if you want to. I don't advise it personally,
Yes.
but
Don't.
Because I did it once and it was a nightmare. Just because, what I found was it seemed to go across every PC. So I've got two PCs and I have one on Insider. The other one becomes on Insider and suddenly I can't have one essentially in beta mode and the other one not, which kind of annoyed me. Maybe there's a way around that. If someone knows,
that
let me
is
know.
I think it's important we clarify that Insider mode is basically beta.
It is, yeah,
testing.
it's betas.
So be very careful with it. Yeah.
So yeah, the temptation is to go off and get all these new features, but you could be hitting. If you've got problems today, you may have even more tomorrow. Just saying. Anyway, PhoneLink is getting an update. A couple of different things coming to the PhoneLink app. They're kind of growing it, and this is more for Android phones specifically, but it's a pretty cool feature. And I've got to say, it's the thing I loved most about having my old Sony Ericsson phone back in the day, when I would plug it into my computer and it would show up as an actual drive that I could then just, copy and paste files into. That was the good old days for me.
Let's be honest, a load of MP3s.
Yes, it always was. It was always MP3s. How do I get my songs onto this thing? I rip my CD, put the songs on it, and I could take them with me. Back in the days before anything really, before any music.
Any streaming.
Streaming service, yeah. Of course, Napster or LimeWire or any of those other ones. Yeah. No, I know. It's funny that, isn't it? You've got no idea. Honest, Gov, I've got no idea. But yeah, so they're giving you direct access now to the Android file system through Windows File Explorer. This is wired or wireless. So even if the phone is not connected, but is essentially
through USB,
well, not even through USB. Wirelessly over Wi-Fi, you can still access the network.
Yeah, absolutely.
Still access the file.
Because you can, if you connect any phone right now to your computer, you can get direct access to the internal memory. Except, Android phone, that's key here, because iPhone, you don't. If you connect it to your phone, your computer with a cable, you get access to the camera roll. Basically, you can drag your pictures and videos off, but that's it. So, okay, but why do you need? I mean, apart from the wireless connectivity, why is PhoneLink doing this? I'm slightly confused. I'll have to get my hands on it.
Well, I mean, ultimately, the PhoneLink app, it does more than that, right? You can make calls, you can send text. I mean, I've never really dabbled in the whole Android's PC world through PhoneLink. I've often thought it sounds quite good because the iPhone does have it, but it's limited. You have limited functionality. And, you can do text and you can get notifications, you can make calls. But
what more do you need?
Well, yeah, I must admit, it does endear me a little bit to Android because, again, you've got more options. I've been dabbling with this Samsung S25 Plus, you see, and that's the problem. Because it feels like an iPhone, it's kind of nice. It just feels like they've taken an iPhone. It's like as if someone looked at an iPhone 14 and said, let's just do that. And that's exactly what the Samsung S25 is. So, and I like it. Actually, that's maybe not a bad idea. Well done, Samsung. Actually, that's not a bad thing.
And actually using the device.
Oh, it's glorious. I won't lie. It's actually a really nice device. And it's interesting. So we're going to get Carrie Morales on from Carry On Accessibility because she had a really interesting post the other day. She was talking about the Samsung Galaxy Watch. I don't know which one it was, whether it was the new Ultra one or I think it's 7 we're up to. And she was saying that the talkback experience on it was so much better.
Oh, really?
She did.
Good.
And she says it clearly is down to hardware. The Pixel hardware is just not up to scratch, whereas the Samsung hardware is better. And she claims Samsung generally is better when it comes to talkback. Controversial viewpoint.
Oh, okay.
But
Let's get her on.
I'm keen to hear her take on that. But anyway, yes. So also they're going to be integrating more Copilot features through PhoneLink. I don't know why it all has to go through PhoneLink, but like you say, but
why has it got AI in it?
I mean, is there not enough AI in it? I mean, a Samsung phone's got Bixby. It's got what is it? Got its own Samsung Galaxy AI. It's got
everything.
Gemini. Goodness me.
Yeah, look, PhoneLink is cool. Any way to connect up your phone, and obviously as an iPhone user, feel slightly more limited than you lucky Android users. Also, there's universal copy and paste if you've got an Android phone and Windows.
That's the winner for me. That's the winner chicken dinner.
I will say, though, now I complained about it the other day about iCloud for Windows. Accessible, kind of, not really, terrible. But it does give you iCloud, the files folder on your File Explorer. It does give you iCloud Photos in your File Explorer. So I can quickly copy a file either from my phone or to my phone through Files. And that is nice, I will say.
I don't know if you can still do that very easily on an Apple computer.
Really?
Well, I've never tried it, to be honest, because, they essentially push you through, like, say if it's music, obviously you go through the music app, and there was a time, if you remember, back in the day when you had iTunes, where you had to go into the iTunes app and then select the phone from the menu, and then there was some hidden table in there where you would and it was per app. So you would have an app, files, and then you would app. And you'd add in the files based, and it was horrible way of doing it.
I never ever got to grips with iTunes.
No,
it was the most complicated, terrible way to manage your music I ever used. It was terrible.
I've got to. I'd love to spend some time with the Apple accessibility team and just sit for a day with them and say, look, here's how I use this computer every day on the Mac, right? And why is this so difficult to navigate when it seems so simple? Like even with the window spots now. I mean, his window spots have kind of saved me for a long time, but even now, that is getting more challenging because the inconsistency when you're moving around from essentially container to container, from say the conversations window into the messages window, and then that doesn't allow you into the text field to respond. You can't quickly check, for example, okay, who am I actually sending this message to without uninteracting and going back through? And sometimes, I have seen me send messages, text messages, right, through the messaging app. I've seen me send them and just hope I'm sending to the right person because I can't be bothered with the whole uninteract 3
Lazy
times,
user error.
left,
That's what the
left.
accessibility team would say.
Yeah, but do you know what I mean? It's like, why can't I just have a keystroke to say I'm sending this message to this person?
Yeah, no,
and I know this is where, like, even on JAWS and even with NVDA, this is where the add-ons come in. This is where Brian Hartgen comes in, and that's the thing, that the developer community around that is so much stronger. I mean, like WhatsApp is a great example with Brian Hartgen and his WhatsApp scripts. Making it easy to know where you are all the time in the system and know what you're doing. You've got more confidence. This is where I feel you have more grip of the wheel when it comes to a Windows computer, because you can have. You have the ability to grab the wheel, whereas it's like trying to drive a car from the back seat with a Mac. It's like you're always kind of it's kind of going left again. But try and grab it. It's like go this way. And why am I now in reverse? I don't understand. And this is where using a Mac can be infuriating. Every time I have this conversation, I think, why am I on a Mac? And then I sit down and use it, and I go, I don't know. It's just beautiful. A weird thing. I suppose I feel like most Windows users, right? We all feel the same way. We have our love moments and we have our hate moments.
Yes, like us, really.
Yeah. Anyway, shall we move on?
I quickly want to say the NVDA add-on for WhatsApp as well changes your life. So good.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's brilliant. Yes. Absolutely brilliant. Okay, so go check that out. I think that's an update that's coming through. I think it might be going to the whole file structure thing is coming through the Insider program first, as they often do these features. I see that.
To try that out again. We didn't try PhoneLink until it was actually initially released, and I gave it a go.
It was quite basic at the time, but I think they've improved it.
It wasn't easy to navigate. It got confusing. So yeah, let's try that out again.
Analysts predict a 43% increase in iPhone prices in the US due to new tariffs on Chinese imports, potentially raising the cost of a new phone to nearly $2,300.
Bargain.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with tariffs at the moment, and I feel,
Is there?
Well, you would think so.
Someone should have said.
Honestly, I can't even begin to get into that because I feel by the time this show airs, it will all have changed again. Trump will have reversed the whole thing and said it's crashing the world economy, so let's not do this. Or to hell with the world economy, I'm doing what I want anyway. Yeah. I don't know. So either there will be no money left anywhere by the end of this show, or we'll all be rich beyond our wildest dreams. I cannot work out which one it will be. Shaun,
rich but can't afford to buy anything. Yes, like
yes.
This is no surprise. We're going to see a lot of these stories. So-and-so product has suddenly risen to an extortionate price. The fact of the matter is that everything, absolutely everything, is going to go up with the current state with these tariffs. We just don't know what the result is going to be. It's just too inconsistent. So who knows? But yes, everything is going up. There's no way around it.
Apple has yet to comment on whether it will raise prices or find alternative ways to offset the impact, according to various sources. Yeah, I mean, of course, they don't really know how they're going to respond to this yet. And I see a lot of criticism of companies like Apple, actually, at the moment, saying, well, you kind of sealed your pact with the devil when you went up to the White House or I guess the Constitution Building, whatever it's called in America, the place where they did the
Constitution Building.
I don't know. I just decided that's
exactly what it's called.
Is it called the Constitution? Let's call it that.
Yeah,
it's the big building where they did the inauguration. I can't remember what it's called. There's a name for it. I don't live in America. I don't know. But there's a lot of criticism of the companies that turned up. They were all there. All the big companies were there, and they were, backing the current incumbent of the White House. And now they're, paying the price for that. Literally paying the price for that. Are they smiling now, I wonder? He said he was going to do it. So there's no surprise. Well, yeah. Another company in the headlights today is Meta. They've entered their post-truth era. Oh, God. I better mute myself before I say something I shouldn't. Carry on. Okay, well, that's kind of not the idea of the show, but no, please do say what you think. Meta will end its fact-checking program in the US today, Monday, replacing it with Community Notes. The new system is powered by the same algorithm as X's Community Notes, which will allow users to contribute crowdsourced fact-checks. Yeah, because, as you know, the public are great at this kind of stuff. I'm sorry, when did fact-checking become a bad thing? When is this true or not, become a bad thing? This is absolutely, I'm not even surprised anymore. I just don't know what's happening to the world. I'll be honest with you. And now I'm sounding like an old man and I'm upset. So I'm going to cry. Don't really know what to say. I'd love to soothe your mind on this one, but you can't. I can't. I know. My daughter tells me things sometimes, and I think, oh, that's just something off social media. That's not true. And I say, yeah, really check that out, because I don't think that's true. Have you heard what so-and-so has done now? Have you heard what they're doing now? I say, yeah, that doesn't sound right to me. Go and really do some research on it. And then I come back to it and have a look myself, and it's absolutely true. And it's like, I just don't know what's going on anymore. It's absolutely amazing. Fact-checking, yeah, we're not bothering with that. We'll crowdsource it instead. Why? How many billions do you want from advertising, and yet you can't put any aside to make sure that misinformation and something that could be harmful is put out? Absolutely ridiculous. Pushing away responsibility because of, whatever reason. You don't want to be seen as one way or the other. Fact is fact, or it's not. I don't know what to say. Well done, Shaun Preece. Well done. Fight the power. That's what I say. But what power? You don't know who you fight anymore. Everyone's as mad as each other. Anyway. We're all right. We're fine. Are we? Yeah. Let's have some fun. Let's talk about Microsoft at 50, as we've been doing earlier. Of course, we mentioned that it's their birthday. Happy birthday. It was also Oni's birthday on Sunday. Was he 50? How old was Oni? He was 1. Oni's 1. Little Oni. Yeah, 1 year old. Just say, that actually isn't Oni. Why haven't we got a recording of Oni himself? I don't know. That's the dog's. That's the generic. I'm talking about a dog. Don't dig into this too much. Don't get too excited about this. But he's 1 year old, and he did his little party yesterday. He also got a cake, as did Coco. So Oni had his cake as well. I don't have a video to show you for this one, I'm afraid. Thank God. Of me singing along. But yeah, we had a nice time yesterday, so it was very nice, very pleasant. Breaking so Oni news. Is 1. Happy birthday, Oni, and Microsoft. And Microsoft. See, only the best have their birthdays around this time of year. But hey, one question up on Mastodon. I didn't expect to get quite the response I did, and we'll read in some of these comments here. But I put up the question, just thinking about Microsoft at 50 made me think about, what was your first PC computer? So, and I say PC computer because, look, I had a Mac way back when. But a lot of people started off, and it's funny that some of the comments have been brilliant, actually. Chris Cook got in touch and said, I got a PC in 1991 running DOS and a very unique program that worked with a sound card. It used a type of game board that was touch sensitive that had an overlay of 25 lines that were raised. Then there were some rectangles along the side that you could touch to set how you wanted to read, whether by character, word, or line. I would then touch one of the 25 lines on the screen, and then my computer would use this obscure software that was way ahead of its time to read my screen, running shareware from 5 quarter-inch floppy disks. This software with the game board was called a Skerf pad. The gentleman that developed it lived about 20 miles from me, and he came over and made sure everything was working okay. Being able to access a game board acting as a touchscreen was about 20 years ahead of its time. At least that's the way it seems to me. I also had a £5 CD-ROM drive that I just loved. I could finally realize my dream of reading the encyclopedia. We all had encyclopedias, didn't we?
Hang on. £5? Is that weight?
I think that's probably the weight, because they were pretty heavy back then.
Yes.
She says, I also think the computer had back then was a gateway computer. Had that for 9 years.
Oh, yes, I remember
Lots of gateway computers, yeah.
Did they have boxes that looked like cows? Black and white?
Oh, yes, that rings a bell, actually, yeah.
I think so. God. Gateway back in the day. Wow.
David Nason says, we got a Windows 95 PC from Gateway 2000. I still remember going to the shop with my dad. Before that, we had a Commodore 64 and an Amiga 500.
Yay, so did I. Beautiful. The Amiga 500 was amazing. Deluxe paint with the face of Tutankhamun on it. I used to spend hours on that thing. Not artistic at all, but it was just so cool.
It was Degas. Is that how you say it? Degas. I called it Degas back in the day, but I don't know if that was right or wrong. And that was a painting program on the Atari.
On the Atari?
On the Atari. Wow. My dad had the Atari, actually. He had the Atari 512. Is that right? We get that right?
Oh, yeah, there was the Atari ST, which was at the same time as the Amiga
Atari
500.
ST.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you were one of those. It's like Mega Drive versus Super Nintendo.
That's
or
right.
Android versus Apple. Atari. I used to go to a computer club. I'm such a nerd. As a kid, I used to go to a computer club, and there was Amigas and Ataris at that time. And there used to be a big division. People, you just didn't mix those Ataris over that rubbish. But that was a really cool time, I've got to say.
Gordon Anthony says, it was so long ago I can't recall the make, but it had no hard disk and 2 floppy disk slots. And the disks really were floppy. Of course, we're talking about the quarter-inch. Not quarter-inch.
5 1/4 inch.
5 1/4 inch,
or
wasn't it?
3.5 for the smaller ones.
Yeah, 3.5
made of hard plastic. The 5 1/4 were made of like cardboard with acetate
wobbly
in them.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Yeah.
He says it only ran a word processing program. That's all it did.
WordStar.
Probably,
Yes.
yeah. Amanda says, mine was a laptop. I can't remember the make. I got it in 2004. So it had Windows XP and I think only a 32 gig hard drive. Them were the days.
Do you remember getting your first gig?
I know. It was like the biggest deal ever. Because that was the thing. I remember my Atari ST was upgraded to 512
megabytes.
And that was like the biggest deal ever. I remember my dad getting really excited about that.
Yeah.
And and now of course it's ridiculous, right? 32 gig is RAM inside a computer, never mind the hard drive.
Yeah.
She says I had Jaws on it, and I think it was version 5 I had. Tina and Tony, they had a Gateway desktop with Windows 95 and Jaws 3 or 3.1. Andre Louis says, I suppose I have 2 firsts. School lent me a Toshiba laptop with a Dolphin Europa card in it, which was basically an Apollo 1 in a special form factor running HAL 4.5 and DOS 5, along with WordPerfect 5.1. It had 20 meg a hard drive, 4 meg a RAM. Loved the machine, worked on it, read books with it, and gamed loads. My actual first purchased machine, also from my school, was a desktop machine with an 84 megabyte hard drive, 4 megabytes RAM, and DOS 6.22. They threw in a Creative Labs AW32 sound card as well, which I absolutely loved, way ahead of its time. Had a very decent MIDI synth on it. Sounded so much better than the Windows MIDI playback options at the time. I upgraded it to an 8 megabit RAM, 500 meg hard drive, and a 40 times CD drive later, along with Windows 95. Remember when you used to talk about the speed of your CD-ROM drive? Remember that? What's yours? Is yours a 52? Is yours a... And, you know, it's all this big deal. Remember that?
Light on. Is it region locked or is it region free?
That's
Can you play anything?
Light on. Remember them?
Light on. I had a few of those. Let's leave that. I got to say...
It's that little business adventure in the past. Okay, fine.
It makes me so happy to think about all this stuff. And it's just amazing. I had amazing times growing up with computers and technology, I've got to say. And... I find it really interesting to hear about the accessibility, back then. You know, like Chris was saying, and about the howl from Andre there. I didn't need that stuff back then, and it wasn't until maybe the 90s where I started using computers at college, and they had all this stuff there. I still didn't need it myself. I could get by with big monitors, but I just find this stuff fascinating, how much it's changed. The deck talks and the howls.
Well, Andre goes on to say, and for those who don't know Andre Louis, he's well known in the community for playing music, creating music. He's a fantastic creator. And he mentioned here, he says, I also nabbed myself a Dolphin Juno, which I still have access to this very day. He says, in DOS, I ran HAL Lite, and in Windows, HAL 95. Got that in 2000, and it lived until about 2002. Wow. Had a zip drive with it as well, so had way more storage. Loved a zip drive. Matthew writes, an old Arkenstone Intel Pentium something that ran OpenBook in Windows 3.1. Juan writes, and this will take us back, my first computer was a Compaq Presario 850SX, bought in 1993 with MS-DOS 6.0 installed, which I later upgraded to 6.22 with a Spanish screen reader called Habla, which also used Spanish voice synthesizers called CyberVoz. I think I've got that right. I hope I have. I had Windows 3.1, which I later upgraded to 3.11 with a Spanish-specific version of Virgo, which here we called Tiflauen. Let's say that. Tiflauen. Let's go with that. Tiflauen. Okay. Kieran writes, parents had a Windows 98 machine. I think it had 64 mega RAM and a 10 gig hard drive. That's pretty impressive. When we first got broadband around 2004, that's about the same time as me, we upgraded to an XP machine with 256 meg of RAM and 40 gig disk. That sounds about my kind of time as well for getting into computers, properly buying them. Got upgraded over the years. I think it ended up with 512 meg RAM and 160 gig hard drive. I remember the massive thing it had was a DVD-ROM drive. The first screen reader was Supernova 6.05.
Yes.
The first machine that was actually my own was a Core 2 Duo machine that I built in around 2008. It had 2 gig of RAM in it, 500 gig hard drive. First started using JAWS around 2009. We used to go to the computer fairs to pick up the parts until they started to become cheaper on eBay. I remember we got a CDRW drive in about 2004, burned loads of CDs using Windows Media Player, then Nero, remember that, and then iTunes. God, it takes me back. David says, my first PC was an XT running MS-DOS 3.2 or 3.3 with a 10 megabit hard drive. Yes, that's megabytes, not gigabytes. When I later upgraded it to a 30 meg drive, I thought I was really rocking. It may have had an internal 2400 baud modem. Goodness me, it takes me back. The days you had external modems. I was trying to explain this to Jacob Szymanski over on AMI Today the other day. He had no idea what I was talking about. I'm like, remember that there was a time when you had to connect to the internet. You didn't. It wasn't just always there. He had no idea what I was talking about.
Mum could cut you off by picking up the phone. I'm on the internet.
I remember my mum used to go on these big 3-hour-long calls with her friend, and I used to be so infuriated because I just want to go online. And she would say, who pays for the call in here? Okay, Mum, sorry. Yes, Mum. Yes. And then, of course, what really infuriated me, you know what really annoyed me about that? At the end of the call to her friend that she just sat on the phone with for 3 hours, she would say at the end of the call, lovely talking to you, Christine. I'll see you tomorrow. And I'm like, you just going to see her tomorrow? You just talk for 3 hours. What are you going to talk about tomorrow?
Well, what would you want to do on the internet, Stephen Scott?
I wanted to download projects for mathematics.
Well done, you. That's very good.
Something like that. Anyway, back to, save me here, David. So David says, my initial screen reader that I used with it was Vocalize 1.1, but I later discovered JAWS, and eventually it became my, ASAP became my DOS screen reader of choice. Is that right? ASAP?
Sorry, I don't know any of those. Well, Vocalize. Oh, no, Vocalize. I think I do know that one. Yeah.
I've heard of Vocalize, yeah.
ASAP, I don't know. I don't think.
For word processing, I used QEdit along with Telix.
Wow.
For dialing into bulletin board systems. That was very popular, of course, back in the day. Not something I ever get into, sadly. Kind of wish I did,
BBS,
though. Yeah, the old BBS thing. The first thing I ever downloaded was something called ACQB, or Armchair Quarterback. I had no interest in the game. and I had no idea what I was doing, but I really wanted to learn how to download something and then use what I'd downloaded. It was quite a noisy thing, and it was built like a tank. I had a nice door that covered up the slot for the 5.25-inch floppy drive.
Yes.
The whole thing was built like a tank. We've got time for one more here. Herbie says Windows 95 in 1988 that had a 2 gig hard drive. That was his computer. JAWS for Windows 1.5 and DECtalk Express. It would get a share of upgrades over the years, starting with Eloquence, JAWS for Windows 2 and a 56K modem. A DSL modem would crash the thing. And so my dad would put in a 25 gig drive, Windows 98, and later another 256 drive. It lasted until 2006 when, interestingly enough, the internet crashed on it again. Listen, there's so many of these messages. I could read them all day, but just fascinating.
Please
Thank
do.
you so much for that. Listen, we're out of time for today. I'm just getting into that there. Sorry. We'll be back tomorrow with plenty more, I'm sure, and plenty of your feedback as well. Catch you then. Thank you, Shaun.
Thank you. Bye-bye.